We're live. My guest today is Théo Pelliet. He is the CTO of OKP4, their protocol providing governance infrastructure for off-chain digital resources. In today's conversation, we're going to discuss what is the OKP4 protocol and how it works under the hood. We'll talk about Dataspaces and how they can be used in applications. We'll discuss the No token and how it's leveraged in the protocol. We'll also talk about the fact they're building on the Cosmos SDK, their roadmap, and so much more. I'm also dying to find out why he thinks the purpose of blockchains isn't payment, but coordination. Before we get started, make sure to hit the like button, hit the notification bell, and subscribe to get notified when I go live every week. And remember that none of what we discuss here on the Interop is investment advice. And if you enjoy this content, please consider staking with us. We're validating on Avmos, Quicksilver, Osmosis, and Juno. Just look for Interop in the active set. And I hope you've booked your flights for Paris this summer for Nebular Summit. It's happening on July 24th and 25th. It's 2 days of technical talks about Cosmos, IBC, the interchain, and so much more. No suits, no panels, no bullshit, just tech talks. And the second batch of early bird tickets just went up. So go to nebular.builders for more information and to get your tickets. My guest, Théo, is coming up next, right here on the Interop. Théo, hi. Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I mean, as a French project building on Cosmos, it's it's sort of a rite of passage to come here on the Interop. So tell me a bit about your background and how you got involved with OKP4.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe to start, I'm not the CTO. I don't want to take the credit for that. CTO is Chris. No problem at all. I'm head of ecosystem. So maybe for my background, I started in finance a little bit and then studied agronomy, so life science engineering applied to agriculture. And when I studied this domain, I started to get across very, very complex problems. You know, when you think of agriculture, you think of, for example, fertilizers, of world trade. And world trade, you get into the politics, into the financial side of it, of the agreements and the money system. And it led me to Bitcoin and then later on to Ethereum in around 2019, when the first applications came out in Ethereum. That was when I started to get really involved in the crypto world. And so I joined OKP4 in 2020 in the founding team. So since then, I'm fully involved in that ecosystem.
Great. Maybe it's because every time we talk, we always have sort of technical conversations about it before. I just assumed that that you were the CEO, but never bothered to ask, or CTO, but never bothered to ask. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about what is OKP4 and give us a brief introduction as to what it is and what its mission is, and how would you describe it to someone who's learning about it for the first time?
Yeah, so to describe it very briefly, and then we'll dive into the details. But OKP4 is a governance infrastructure for off-chain resources. So any resources like data sets, like algorithms, like storage resources, computation resources. I mean, anything that is off-chain and that is digital. It's a blockchain built on the Cosmos SDK. So the blockchain is specifically designed to define on-chain rules and to share any resources according to the rules that you define on-chain. And that enables, we'll dive into the details, but that enables to create applications based on all the resources that are shared by the participants. And so you don't have to rely on a one central piece of infrastructure to do that. You can leverage data algorithms that are shared by hundreds, thousands of participants. And so the project, OKP4 started really with the use cases around 2019. And then we decided to build the technology on Cosmos, the technology to remove the company as an intermediary and to create the right infrastructure for these kind of use cases. So that's the bit of the background. The the context of it, let's say one of the first applications that we created are around data sharing. Maybe to give some context, there is data everywhere. Data, if you add some context, you have information, and if you add interpretation to that information, you can have knowledge. And for example, I say 12 is data, 12 degrees can be an information, and put a jacket is knowledge. So you have this whole process, and there is a strong need for knowledge in our world. I mean, knowledge is infinite. Knowledge, it has a lot of value. I mean, it's today we can't solve cancer because we don't know how. We can't grow food in the desert because we don't know how. We don't do nuclear fusion because we don't know how. It's all about knowledge, and this is the value that can be derived from knowledge is infinite, and that's usually the limiting factor for a lot of problem solving in our world. And we really believe that blockchain has something to do with that. Not only the decentralized infrastructure for storage or computation, but really the orchestration of all of it and the sharing of that.
So you told me that your hot take was that blockchains are not best suited for payments, or at least that should be their main use case, but more so for coordination. Can you unpack that, and how does it relate to OKP4 and what you guys are building?
Yeah, so it's a big thing. I mean, today, let's say most of the use cases of blockchain resolves about DeFi or NFTs or just payments, and this is like just the tip of the iceberg. I think what crypto and what blockchain is all about is really the real world coordination. Um, let's say the blockchain, its role is to enforce rules, and the token, its role is to create the incentives to bootstrap the network and to bootstrap the let's say the coordination mechanism between the people and the companies. And so the let's say a blockchain is like a minimally extractive coordination mechanism or infrastructure that enables people, companies to contribute and align themselves according to the rules that are defined on chain, according to the source of truth that is defined on chain. And this is, I mean, this is the key component is you need to interact with the off-chain world, with the real world, to leverage the whole potential of the blockchain technology. And I mean, at OKP4, we're really focused on let's create the right infrastructure for governance of any off-chain resources, especially the data sets that are acquired through many things like IoT or existing systems or whatever. But let's build the right infrastructure to enable people to coordinate themselves with each other, utilizing the different data sets and algorithms shared by participants.
So let's dissect this whole data space concept that you guys are putting forth with this protocol. So that's one of the key concepts is data spaces. Can you elaborate on what it is and give us an example of how they could be used?
Yeah. So one of the key concepts is, so we started to talk about data spaces because it's a term that is very common in Europe, but we are switching because it's very connoted in some environments. So we switched to talk about the zones. So let's dive a little bit about what we do.
Other connotations to zones are also
confusing.
Yeah,
definitely. We don't want to take the light out of the zone concept in Cosmos, but that's very different. So that's why it may not be confusing. But the zone is it's a set of rules. Basically, it's a governance that enables to just defining the rules in which your resources can be shared. So it's for example the access rights, the business models, whatever rules you want. So we're in the blockchain, we designed a module that is the logic module, and that enables to define and interpret any kind of rules. And so this is designed to share and yeah, to make sure that the rules are understandable by the different computers, so the validators, and that they are enforced in the protocol. And so within that zone, you have any resources that can be shared. I mean, it's not really within, because some resources can be in many zones at the same time, and some zones can be overlapping because it's just rules. But this is the key component, is that you can define any rules, and you can define any mechanisms to change the rules. Like a zone can have its custom token. It can be kind of centralized with only one actor doing all the governance that can change the rules. So that can be suitable for companies, for example, or it can be consortiums, like many users or companies that can design, that can choose if they want to change the rules.
So is the idea here to create like a supply chain around data, or just to provide the data? Because a lot of, I think, projects that have tried to create governance around data or data marketplaces, and there's been like some examples over the years, and the idea was to create a supply chain about how the data was created. So, for example, you might have like an IoT device out in a field, and you want to know how much rainwater is falling there, or like how much pesticides being used, or I don't know what. Like, I'm not very well versed in agriculture, but there's some like data produced, and we want to know how. And so there were some attempts previously to have IoT devices sign that data, and then that would enter like this sort of data pipeline, right? This data supply chain, and then at the end you have the data points. And so, is that part of the idea here, or is it something else at play here?
Yeah, so let's talk about what OKP4 is not. So OKP4, it's not a data marketplace. So it's not somewhere you can say, here is my data, here is a specific price, and here you can buy it if you want, and you transfer it to a buyer. So it's not that. It can enable that, but it's not that. It's not a data broker that would just sell the data and compile it, and we don't have anything to do with that. It's not a storage layer. It's not a computation layer. It's not a data availability layer. It's a scaling solution. So it's not all of that. What it is it's the governance infrastructure to apply rules to off-chain resources. So let's say to maybe you can I mean, regarding the example you gave in agriculture, I mean, that's a huge field. But what's interesting is that there are many existing data sets all around the world for specific things. For example, people around the world have data about their fertilizing practices. So that's something that exists, and usually that is not shared outside of the company that collects the data. So you have the let's say the machine collects the data. It goes to usually it's the tractors company that collects the data, and that can provide services on top of them. Sometimes it's third parties, but usually this data stays in silos because there's mostly two issues. But because there is a lack of trust, I mean, I don't want to put my data somewhere else if I don't know what's going to happen with it. And that's mostly, it creates a trust issue, because if I give my data to someone, he can sell it back to someone else. He can do whatever he wants with it. And there are also a lack of incentives to share the data. That is, what I'm going to win if I share my data with such and such company or such and such person. And really, the idea is that what we provide is the right infrastructure to create the environment where everyone can trust each other, because the rules are on chain, and they have the right incentives because all the business models also are on chain. And so it creates this let's say, this enforcement of the rules and the right incentives to let's say, incentivize people to share their data sets with each other and create new knowledge. Because basically, when you combine multiple data sources, you have more robust knowledge. You can have a higher diversity of applications if you share the data with other participants. And so this enables new value chains basically to exist. Maybe I can dive deeper into an example.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about an example.
Yeah. So let's take again the agriculture, because that's something we started in. We have a project that is based in Brittany, in the west of France. That's a project that's called La Data est dans le pré, which means the data is in the field. And the idea is that farmers want to do the calculation to find the fair price of their milk according to their cost, of course, but also to their environmental practices. And so, of course, if they have better environmental practices, their milk needs to be paid better by the industry. And so, but to have this fair price, you need basically two things. You need the accounting data, and you also need the technical data about their practices. Because the accounting, you know how much fertilizer they spend in the year, for example. They know what your cows are eating. Are they grazing, or are you buying some soy from Brazil? I mean, that's something you can see in the accounting. And also the technical side, like how did you plow the soil, for example, to grow your maize, or this kind of things. And if you combine these many data sets together with an algorithm that is, in that case, developed by the French Institute of Research for Agronomy, that is INRAE, you have the fair price. So that's a new knowledge that has a lot of value and that can be sold to the industry that needs to be compliant with the French legislation. But there's something very interesting once we started that project, is that yes, we have the fair price of the milk, but very quickly we realized, oh, with all these data sets, we can also do the calculation for carbon credits, for example. So the farmers, they didn't need to do anything else. All the data was already shared according to the rules. And they just had to allow another algorithm provider to do the carbon credit calculation on top of their data. And so very easily, it created a new value chain. It created a new source of revenues for the farmers themselves. And according to the rules also, they can decide which services are allowed to access the data. And of course, the accounting company don't exchange and provide the data with the technical company, with the cooperative. So you don't have to expose your data sets to the other participants. You keep it for yourself, and you keep the data where it already is. You just reference it in the blockchain, make it available to algorithms that you have agreed on, and then let the value flow.
Interesting. So can you elaborate on the role of the governance mechanisms that you guys are building? And we'll talk a little bit more about like technically how that's implemented with the Cosmos SDK. But I'm curious as to, if we take this example, I think this is a good example that we should stay on. What types of governance rules can exist that OKP4 allows? And, I think like one question that I have is, because data is so data can be copied as many times as you want, and it still holds value. Once you access data, you have the ability to copy that data and potentially exploit that data outside of a system. And I understand that OKP4 provides the governance mechanisms to allow certain entities or participants to look at data. But how is that practically enforced when data can just be copied, right? Like, it's not like an NFT where there is a tangible, so there's like an intrinsic value to having the on-chain attestation that this piece of information exists at a certain point on chain. The data can be used off-chain and can be copied. I don't know if that's clear, but I'm sort of trying to understand how OKP4 prevents data theft, if it does, or how does it deal with that question?
Yeah. That's so there's two questions. There are the rules you mentioned, and what happens if someone breaks the rule, or is it even possible to prevent data to be leaked or to be used by someone who has access to it? So regarding maybe the rules we'll see later when we go deeper into the infrastructure. But regarding the rules, we're dealing with the off-chain world, basically. So that's very complicated when we think about blockchains that are kind of siloed systems where if you want to interact with the outside world, you need oracles, and you may have some issues. I think that's issues that are common in other systems that deal with the off-chain world, like storage, decentralized storage, or decentralized computation. You need to make sure through the mechanisms you define and that the game theory is right. That's the first thing. So you need to provide the right incentives for, in this case, especially the service provider who are providing for example, the algorithm and the infrastructure. These guys, they will have access to the data because they are processing it. So if there is kind of a backdoor, or if they want to collect the data that comes in, they can do it. Basically, nothing technically can prevent them to do it. So there is a first. So we as builders, we need, of course, to think about that. And there is the first layer that is the game theory, that you create systems like a reputation system, like staking mechanisms with the possibility to slash the, let's say, the stake of the service provider if they are doing something wrong. You create these mechanisms, but of course it doesn't do anything. I mean, as a new service provider, I may describe my service as something, and it's not really the case. So I mean, we that's where also comes into the play. You can have audits from third parties, for example, and you can also use and share technologies that are privacy preserving, because the infrastructure we built is very neutral and agnostic in terms of what you can share, and you can even share ZK based services or multi-party computation services. You can make that mandatory in the rules that you use such services within that zone. So basically we are creating the right environment for developers to do what they want and to let any kind of data and services and interact with each other. But within that rules, you can define specifically what kind of services are allowed or not.
How easy is it for developers or parties that own data to build their own data space or zone in OKP4?
So there is two ways to create a zone and to share the resources. You can do it basically through the code, like you have a terminal. We provide the SDK, the right tools to do that. So you have within the OKP4 SDK, you have all the connectors to connect for example, your existing cloud provider like AWS or Azure or whatever. Or if you want to use decentralized computation, you can also do it. We are building the connectors, and so that's regarding the sharing part. And so when you want to utilize, sorry, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, it was how easy is it for developers to implement their data set on OKP4?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the first option is to do it through the code and the connectors. Second option is using the interfaces that we've designed. So we're building many no-code interfaces to enable anyone to share their data very easily, to share their services very easily, and to create also the workflows, because once you have the data and the services, that's the provider side. And on the consumer side, you create the workflows where you mix the data and the services with each other to create or to fuel the application you want. And so that's the no-code interfaces. That's something that that we are heavily working on, and that's something also that we will announce during the Nebular Summit. So during the product workshop, workshop, and yeah, it's the same for the zones. The zones, the rules, you can define them through the interfaces. So we're really working on these two levels: the protocol itself with the right modules and smart contracts, basically, and also the interfaces. There will be many interfaces in the future, but the first one we're providing is this portal that enables in a no-code way to create the zones and to provide data and services and to consume them.
Cool. I'd like to get into the protocol a little bit. In the documentation in your white paper, you talk about this concept of ontology. I thought that was a really interesting idea that I guess exists in sort of systems design or data structure design. And I'd like to talk a little bit that like what is this concept of ontology? Could you walk us through what this looks like and how it relates to what you guys are building? You're muted.
Sorry, ontology is a concept that was used by our CTO Chris, who designed most of the things. But it's let's say an ontology is a formal and structured representation of all the concepts, the relationships, and the properties. So you have let's say you have all the objects, the data sets, the algorithms, all the resources basically that are shared, and you have all the relationship within them. So for example, each data has its metadata described. So what kind of data is it? What is its purpose, its size, where does it come from? I mean, it's described on chain. And attached to the data, you have also the consents, the rights to use it, and interlapped with that, you have also the different rules of the zones. And so the ontology, let's say it's a representation of all of that we call the dataverse. And the dataverse is all the combination of all the resources and the rules attached to it. And so that's one way to represent it. We have defined a standard, let's say for our protocol to a standard to make the ontology as customizable as possible and to make it expand as much as possible. So it's very, let's say, low level standard in the terms of requirements, and it can grow exponentially. And every data and every algorithm can be understandable through the ontology because of all the relationships this data and algorithm has with each other.
And how does the ontology ensure consistency and coherence of let's say like the knowledge contained within it, within OKP4?
So there's two kind of knowledge. There is what's on chain and what's off chain. So the ontology is completely can be derived from the blockchain itself. So all the ontology, all the rules, and all the metadata are on chain, and so basically it's a blockchain. So you can't change it unilaterally. You have this ontology that can just expand in some ways, or if you want to remove some rules, you have to touch the smart contract that's called the lodestone, and that is only a stone. So you can only break the stone and remove something, remove some rules from the ontology, and you can only add new things if you have the right to do so. But usually, if you put very low level of rules, you have the right to do so. But yeah, this consistency is basically leveraged and enabled by the blockchain. Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about some of the technical aspects here. So you guys are building on the Cosmos SDK. What's the reasoning behind this choice, and what benefits does Cosmos SDK bring to the project? And yeah, then I'd like to get into some of the modules that you guys are. I believe you're building custom modules as well. So let's get into that a bit.
Yeah. So the choice of Cosmos, we've made it in 2021. After the first use cases were brought to the table, we studied few options. Some of them at the time were Polkadot parachains or Avalanche subnets. That's the option we've considered, but for many reasons, I mean, for the independence of decisions, to move at our own speed, to customize the chain as much as we want, Cosmos was the obvious choice. We can ask anything to our validators, from the software to the hardware. You can create many synergies with the ecosystem, and that's something really huge for us, because as we are building a governance infrastructure, we need to leverage other ecosystems that can provide decentralized compute or storage or anything. And IBC, and the vision for IBC is really that, and the same for Cosmos, to create this internet of blockchain in some sense. And also, let's say so that's most of the reasons, and many things can be done through Cosmos, from, I don't know, like mempool encryption or native oracles, or many things that create the perfect environment for us to design the right infrastructure, because it's, as you understand, it's very customized, it's pretty new, it's also pretty experimental. So the fact that you have a kind of governance intensive chain with token holders who have let's say most of the power and can do votes at a very low level very often, is something that is great, and you can't do anywhere else, because if you want to do an upgrade on Ethereum, that's a bit tricky. And
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, I think for a platform, like for a project that is building such a a project with such a broad vision, but also, I mean, it's really a platform. I mean, the way I'm understanding OKP4 more and more is that it is a space where people are going to be able to build all sorts of applications on top, and to have that sovereignty as a Cosmos chain, I think makes a lot of sense. Talk about some of the modules that you guys are building and how they relate to the project.
sorry. So yeah, most of the designs are in the combination of the modules and the smart contracts. There is one core module that is customized in OKP4, that is the logic module. So this is the one that enable any rule to be defined, and this is the one that is questioned when a rule needs to be enforced. And so this is something that it is very elegant design that came out of the CTO's mind. But it's we're using a domain-specific language to enable these rules, and that's Prolog. So Prolog is a language from the 1970s that is very specifically designed to do programming logic language, so Prolog. And this allows to define basically relationship between what we call objects through predicates. So you define the rules and you define the facts, and that's a predicate. And that's not huge. That's not used that much in crypto. I think I've only seen one guy, that is Christopher Goes, that now works at Anoma. And I think it's the only one that I've seen building something with Prolog. So Anoma are using Prolog for their intent-centric technology. And yeah, basically, there was also a fun example on Twitter that using Prolog, if you want to create a Sudoku solver, you can do it in C++ or Python or Go with 100 lines of code. But with Prolog, you only need 3 lines of code because you define the rules, and then you have the Sudoku solver. And so that's a very powerful and I think very niche language, but perfect for what we want to do. And so the logic module, sorry, has a Prolog interpreter in it. And so then you have all the smart contracts, and the smart contracts mostly it enables to do the representation, to do the ontology as explained earlier. So you can, through the smart contracts, you can change the data sets, you can put new data sets or algorithms or any resource basically, and you can make the ontology evolve. So that's the second part. You have all the smart contracts related to the ontology in the Dataverse. And the third part is the execution. So you have, let's say, it's very important to make sure that all the rules are respected, and to make sure that all the agreements and the value flows within the ecosystem. You can have very complex workflows with hundred of provider. We need to make sure that all of them are doing their work, that the data is still available off chain, that the computation is done in the right way. And so there is also this escrow mechanism to make sure that all the off-chain execution is done properly, and then the value flows to all the providers. So that's the third part of the smart contracts.
So you're leveraging CosmWasm then to build all the custom logic?
Yeah, all the smart contracts are using CosmWasm. We have also this the vision to leverage interchain queries, interchain accounts to really create new synergies, especially involving the real world through ABC and through CosmWasm. I mean, today we're really just starting the discussions with other protocol because we need more maturity, but now it's getting good. And so, yeah, definitely we'll have some synergies with Akash, with Checked, with Kive, with Juno, Neutron, with Secret Network. I mean, there is many things to build, and that's pretty good.
So how are you going to be leveraging interchain queries and interchain accounts? Can you maybe, in some time when OKP4 is launched and there's integrations with other chains, what would like an application that's using OKP4 cross-chain kind of look like?
Yeah, so an application can leverage. I mean, the vision is like it's seamless for the end user, and so the application has embedded all the mechanism to do the multi-chain environment mechanisms. So if you want to, so whenever you create, for example, a new data set through a workflow, maybe you want it to go to be automatically stored in Kive, for example, and so you create the transaction is done in OKP4, but it also interacts with a smart contract in Kive, and the thing happen. Same for example, secret network. Some things can't be stored on chain, especially secrets, right? To do some to access some data sets that that are specifically, or if you don't want to trust any intermediary to do the access mechanism, you can do it through secret network and have the right encryption key, for example, and then to let the data be available. So that's also something that is very interesting. And I mean, it's infinite. So I talked a lot about the infrastructure, but also on the use case side, maybe we can leverage some data sets that are enabled by other marketplaces or other networks for data. Some of them are coming. I don't know, like Fetch AI or Mediblock, or these guys are also doing some use cases in some ways. And we are the platform with the blockchain to make all these guys talk with each other in some ways through the governance that is enforced in OKP4.
Very cool. Yeah, do you want to talk about the token a little bit?
Yeah, so the token is it's layer one token, so it's a fee token. It can so be used for staking. It's used for governance also, and it mostly as also used as a default payment mechanism within the ecosystem. Data and service providers are retributed using the token, and the consumers pay using the token. Within a zone, they can. I mean, that's something that will come in the future. But if they want to use another currency, they can do it. That's something that we will enable. But what we want to bring, let's say the value capture mechanism for the token is that on the workflows that are initiated, you have let's say a 2% fees that is redirected to the token holders and to the foundation, so the OKP4 foundation. So you have 2/3 that are going to the token holders in a way that they'll decide basically if they want to burn the tokens, if they want to put it in the community pool. I mean, that's a mechanism that we're preparing, and that they can decide. I mean, once the mainnet is launched, we can only do propositions, right?
And do you have any like? I mean, it's interesting that you guys are building like a data governance platform, and you are also, a layer one blockchain with governance. Have you already made some progress in terms of thinking about the governance of the blockchain itself? And because you said earlier um, that the goal is to remove the company as much as possible and have the chain sort of be self-governed. What's your vision there?
Yeah, so the OKP4 now is a company based in France. We're right now setting up a foundation in Switzerland, and the foundation has a vision to become as much, decentralized, or represent the community as much as possible. In the first 2 years, the company and the founding team will be part of one of the college of the foundation. There are 3 colleges: one for validators that will be elected, one for let's say advisors or more connected to the community, and one of the founders. That's only for 2 years. Then the community will become bigger and bigger as the years goes on. So the community will elect their representatives for the foundation, and it will be these both entities, let's say the DAO or the blockchain governance, and the foundation that will mostly lead the decisions. The foundation will not vote on the proposals that are on off chain, but they can say what they think of the proposal, but the foundation is not supposed to vote. So we want to, and the company, I forgot to mention, will change its name and will be, let's say, the developing arm and the B2B arm for the foundation. And so the company will be completely removed from any kind of governance. It will just say what the foundation decide for the company. And actually, we have a 2-year contract from the company to the foundation. But then, if the foundation don't want to deal with the company anymore, they can do it. So it's let's say we're in the next 2 years following the mainnet. It will still be kind of closed to the founding team. But as time goes on, the network will do its thing and can decide by itself as much as possible and in the most transparent way, because we've seen many things, especially in Cosmos and everywhere in crypto, that the lack of transparency it can kill a project. So
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is always a huge risk with any blockchain. Yeah, looking at a little bit at the product roadmap, what kind of future developments and improvements are planned for OKP4? And I know you guys have this really nice roadmap on the website with like all of the steps. What can people expect from OKP4 like in the coming months?
yeah, So right now we are just starting the last phase of our incentivized program for validators. So that's mostly most of the work is already done on the validator side. The program is called Nemeton, and it was mostly to test the technology, to test the modules, to test the smart contracts. Now we're getting ready on that side. So we are opening the builders program. That is, as said, it's for builders. So it's for people who want to build on OKP4. This will start in the 15th of June, so in less than a month. And this builders program will be in different steps. But first there will be some onboarding. Then there will be the ability for builders to build specific components. So for example, if they want to design new governance rules, they can do it. If they want to create new connectors for the off-chain world for a specific cloud provider, for example, they can do it. If they want to work more on identity or on business models, they can do it. So it's like what we call components. So some small aspects of the protocol. Sometimes not that small, but and then the third phase will be for them to create applications. So mostly it will be proof of concepts, but by the let's say the middle of the summer, we'll start to incentivize them to create proof of concepts. We have many hackathons and hacker rooms coming in the next few months. In the events in the physical way, and so on in the online way. We will of course do some animation and Q&A and many things to help the builders create things that are relevant. So this builders program, we have 2% of the token supply dedicated for developers, and it's mostly the opportunity for them to learn about the project, learn about the tech mostly, and be the first in line before the mainnet launch, because of course the foundation then will take the relay, and will do grants and incentives for developer to do more bigger applications based on data and services that are shared by participants. So maybe the mainnet is scheduled around the end of the year. It will depend of market conditions and many things, but that's the plan. And before that, I mean, there is this builders program for developers. In the meantime, we're also working on many partnerships on the B2B side, with huge businesses in Europe a lot, but also in the world, and with this idea to kickstart the mainnet with cool use cases on the crypto side for crypto natives, but also on the more B2B traditional side, with the company that will also help onboard these other companies, especially through the legal and financial stuff, because it's never easy to interact with blockchains for them. So the company will also has this role.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think is quite interesting about the way you guys are structuring this, is that there is an entity that does business development, and that that is meant to facilitate onboarding of OKP4 by mostly like enterprise clients, I think, or like medium to large size businesses. What kinds of use cases or applications, when speaking with customers today, what kinds of things are people excited about building on OKP4 that you're seeing out there?
Yeah, so there's a few things, mostly on the B2B side. Today we already have a few projects, around 8 of them, in different fields, from agriculture to logistics, to space observation. I mean, these are the kind of use cases that we have, and that are right now being transferred in the testnet. So they were working outside of the crypto world, and now they're going into the testnet and being tested. So that's pretty cool. But of course we will continue these partnerships and this experimentation with many companies. But it takes some time. Sometimes it can be a few months for companies to decide to do something and what to do. So that's one strategy. The other one is mostly in the crypto world. We have there are many potential of application, but for example, you have one thing that is today called like a proof of physical work. Like this is, for example, Helium is doing a decentralized wireless network. This is through physical objects. Some other projects are doing like I don't know, Hive Mapper is doing some mapping that is decentralized, that is done by users, and users are incentivized to capture pictures and videos basically through cameras. You have a demo that does, for example, connectivity data with your vehicle, and so you have this network basically that uses the token as an incentive to capture data sets. So that's something that can be done, but with OKP4 it goes beyond that, because once you have captured the data, you want it to interact with maybe other data sets, maybe data sets that can be private and or sensible, and that are shared by companies that don't want their data to be open sourced or this kind of thing. So it creates, let's say, new opportunities for this kind of networks to emerge and make it very, very easy for developers to create this kind of networks, but also create new use cases through that. Another thing that excites some developers is this idea to do like kind of a AI DAO. So like you have a network of participants within a zone that have, of course, their custom governance token and are incentivized to train an algorithm, a model, and then once the model is trained, they can what they can do is through token they can decide what to do with it. So from the business model to who has access to it, and for what for, or do they want to make it open source or not? I mean, they can collectively decide to what they want to do with it, and they can collectively incentivize people to train that algorithm according to the rules that they define. So what the data should be structured, and who has the right to train it. I mean, all the rules that they defined.
One of the things I'm hearing here is that there seems to be like a lot of different use cases and a lot of types of applications that that you guys are anticipating people will use OKP4 for. Do you think that that might be also a challenge? I mean, in my experience, that you know, previous business I was building, where we were building platforms for people to collaborate around information. This was earlier in the years of blockchain, but one of the biggest challenges we had was finding a real kind of go to market strategy and a use case that would allow us to really sort of excel as a business. Do you think this is going to be a challenge, or are you looking for like a more refined go-to-market strategy, or do you think that OKP4 should just be like an open platform and anybody should sort of be able to build whatever they want on it?
Yeah, so the vision really is to make the platform as open as possible. I mean, in a similar way that, for example, DYDX is only doing open source code, the infrastructure. They don't even do the interface. They let others do that. They just build the right infrastructure, and then anyone can build on top of it. You have also, I mean, the last 1-2 years, you have synthetics that did kind of a pivot and started to be really B2B. They started. I mean, other projects came building on synthetics, like for perpetuals, like Quenta, or options like Lira. I mean, there is even sports betting on synthetics. There is like 30 or 40 projects leveraging synthetics, and it seems that this pivot is really powerful. and that it creates a nice network effect. And definitely it's going to be a challenge, but I mean, we are the first to provide these new primitives for builders to work with and to have fun with it. So that's a bet, but basically it's I mean, we really believe that once the hurdle, once there will be the first successful use cases that are initiated by the community now, either in the builders program or the company itself, with the company, with other B2B projects and ecosystems. Once we have the first use cases, I think it will initiate this network effect and incentivize new builders to come and to develop on top of it. So that's a bet, but we're pretty confident.
Great. Well, before we wrap up, why don't you you guys are going to be at Nebular Summit. You're also sponsoring the event, so yeah, really happy to have you guys as a sponsor. And you'll be giving a technical workshop you mentioned briefly earlier. Give people a sense of what they can expect from you guys at Nebular this year.
Yeah, so for us, it's really the first events we're doing in the Cosmos ecosystem. So that's let's say the getting out of stealth. Now the community will become bigger and bigger. It's mostly the opportunity to show what we've been building, because let's be honest, it's pretty complicated topic. It's pretty new also, and people are often confusing what we're doing with other things like storage of data or marketplaces, or it's so for us, let's say the main goal is to make it as easy as possible for anyone to understand what the value proposition is, and to do the announcements of what's coming. So we have a lot of things from the product to the partnerships that will be announced there, and yeah, that's something that I invite anyone to come and because there will be surprises.
Amazing. Well, I love a good surprise. Théo, thanks for coming on the podcast today and sharing the vision for OKP4 and explaining how it works. And certainly we'll be able to do this again, I think, in the future as things evolve and when the network launches. I'm really excited to see people start building on it.
Thank you, Seb. Thank you so much.